The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Geneva, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast with limited commercials. Now, here's host, Dom Geneva.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of your No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Geneva, your host, 10 o'clock Saturdays right here. And all the previous shows, I'd like to remind you, are on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com. So I have somebody here who I've gotten to know and like, and I also think he has a wonderful business model, and the fellow's name is John Myers, and he is here with Heather Roman, and they're going to talk about a product that they have. And well, John, your original business was photography, taking portraits and doing that type of work for advertising. And let's tell everybody a little bit about what your path in life has been.
Well, yeah, I've worked as an advertising photographer for many years, and then in the last 10, 15 years, I've come involved in doing video. So we do a lot of TV commercials and also work for the web and video. So most of our work now is video. It kind of transitioned from being a still photographer to a director. And also Heather here is our producer at our company. So we work in advertising, and we do work for companies locally and all over the country.
So I have to go on record right now to say that this show is not going to be about portraits and advertising and stuff that my listeners would like to know about, but wouldn't like necessarily to be a part of their lives. And you are doing something now that I think is a fantastic idea, and that's what I want to talk about, because what we have is a new product. It takes into account John's abilities and talents, and I think that conceptually it is a wonderful idea. And in short, well, Heather, explain it in your words what Life Interviews is.
So we will interview either an individual or a couple and capture your life stories to preserve for your children and your grandchildren and your family, your friends, just to preserve your, favorite stories, favorite memories. Not so much like facts and figures, but more like those stories about your life.
Yeah, we think it's really important with Life Interviews. We started this company, just to give you a little background, is I had interviewed my father back in 2015. I'd read a book on wisdom, and they had questions in the back of the book that they'd asked all these people over 65. So I went to my dad's house. I set up a camera. I interviewed him, asked him all these questions. And they weren't, again, like facts and figures. They were more like questions like, if you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? Now, he was in his 80s at the time. So I asked him all those questions, and I just forgot about it. And had the tape. And then he died in 2017. Mm-hmm. So I took those questions, that tape, and we edited it all together. And then for Christmas that year, I gave it to my brothers and sisters and the rest of my family, my father's interview. And it just moved them so much to see my dad again, to hear him laugh, hear him tell the stories that we've all heard before, but it was great to have in his own words. And it really brought him back to life for our family. So I thought that was just such a moving thing. I thought if I could do that for other individuals and couples, it might be a really great thing. Because, we started working on this a few years ago. And the thing that always kills me is that everyone always says, when I tell about the idea, they say, I wish I would have done X, their grandparents, their father, their mother, and it's always too late. So that's why I came up with this idea to capture these. And with Heather and Dan at my studio, we do these interviews of individuals and couples.
Well, I can attest to that myself, because I've done, since 2019, I think I've done maybe 300 or 325 interviews. And every once in a while, somebody will come up to me and say, geez, I have to tell you, we were listening to the interview that you did with Dad. back when Dad's not with us anymore. And the ability to have this interview, and it aired on the radio, obviously, is something we really appreciate, because we heard his story from beginning to end, where a fresh person was interviewing him. It wasn't like we just put him in front of a microphone. And if people feel that way about an interview that I do with somebody that is just audio, I mean, having the different visual assets that you could put together with that, it's got to be really great. I mean, it's got to be fun. I mean, to show somebody, an artifact or something that they cherish that may not last through time. It might get buried someplace in somebody's in somebody's storage bin. And to have that and have the person hold it and show it, there's got to be like a light in their eyes and a little bit of an appreciation that wow, I always wanted to show this to somebody, and now I can.
Yeah, it's just so. I just think it's so impactful to see these people you love so much, and the thing about the videos, the people that are they're watching the videos are people that love them. So it's always really interesting. They always learn something new about the people that I've interviewed, and we've always had a really enjoyed the experience, and the people that we interview have really enjoyed the experience also when we do these life interviews. So
you've done a few of these so far, right, Heather?
Yeah, we've done. I don't know. I've lost count, but we've done.
But now, when you schedule these now, in all honesty, I have to tell everybody that Nita and I think this is a great idea. So we've teamed up with Life Interviews, and we're going to start the process ourselves. And I just think there's so many upsides to this that at our age is compelling that we do this and pass something down, because in particular, my story and Nita's story are a little bit unusual, and to preserve that for future generations is something that's really kind of neat to us. And like I like to say in the commercial that I crafted for you, when you go and you get your DNA tested, and the DNA says that your ancestors came from here or there, or, now you found out that you're really not Italian, you're Jewish. I mean, that's there's right. There's more of that. We'll discuss that during the break.
Yes.
But here it's more than that. Here, I mean, I know it's kind of a, I don't know what kind of statement this is. Is call it trite, or just a silly analogy, but they say the best time to plant an oak tree is 50 years ago, and the second best time is today. And nobody ever plants an oak tree thinks that they're going to get the benefit of the shade of that oak tree. So you plant an oak tree knowing that it's going to be passed down to future generations, and that's what you're doing. It's really it's a cool idea. It's a cool idea for a number of different reasons. Now you have somebody. I know that you said in particular would be willing to come on the air to talk about his experience and his video. And what is this fellow's
Bernie
name?
Schroeder. I did his parents. His parents are in their late 80s, and will be and they were really wonderful. He had a really great interview with them, and he really loved the video when they're all done, so he'd love to talk to us about it.
And you said that you did this in the late 80s?
No, his parents were in his late 80s.
The parents were late. I was going to say, if you did this in the late 80s, the video cameras were the size of,
You're right.
The size of beer coolers, for God's sakes. Okay. So during the break, let's see if we can't get him on the line and get his own personal experience to tell us about.
Sounds great.
Life Interviews. And we'll be right back right after this.
This is Dom Geneva from Myers Creative. People get DNA tested to see where their ancestors came from, and that's all you get, where they came from. How about if you could actually have a video of past family? Well, you can't do that for the past, but you could do it for the future. John Myers can visit your home and video a professional and thoughtful interview for you to pass down to generations. Book one for yourself or give one as a Christmas gift to mom and dad to talk about their story. or both. Go to lifeinterviews.com.
Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're talking to John Myers, who owns Myers Creative, but also Life Interviews, which is a company that will come down and spend some time with people in your family to tell their stories and pass them down to future generations. And I had I misunderstood what he said during the last break. Well, you've been doing this from the 80s. No. We have a fella who got together with his family, and he contracted with us to do this with his parents, and his name is Bernie Schroeder. And then in that, let's see if we can't get Bernie on the phone. To talk about Bernie's experience, because there's nothing to sell something that is better than somebody who's actually bought whatever it is and is happy with it. So, Bernie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, both of you. I appreciate the time and the call. And yes, we are very happy customers, I should say.
So how did you initiate this thing? I mean, did he reach out to you? You reached out to him, or
we kind of reached out to each other. So, and I knew, and I told him about the services and his parents, and he was really interested in recording his parents' story. So,
is this something that you did for yourself, for your parents, or you got the rest of your family together, or how did you do this?
Yeah, it was something that all of us, I have 3 sisters and myself, we wanted to, somebody bring in a tape recorder at some point in time, the great stories, and we never did. And it's something like, oh, someday we'll get around to it. And you never get around to it. And then John happened to have this business. It's like, this is exactly what we're talking about. But if we schedule you, you'll actually get around to it. And, we just have a lot of hopes and dreams on it. And so my sisters and I would talk to my folks about, same kind of, there's nothing to tell here. You've heard them all before. I said, no. And this is a gift from your kids, essentially back to us, as they say. It's not for me. This is for you. It says, I get it. And it's for your grandchildren. And now a couple of great grandchildren, because they don't really know you. They've seen you at 2.5 years old, and they love you for the moment. But, without this, they'll really never know. So it was a great opportunity for us to have them sit down and answer some terrific questions that John and Heather and the team put together. Very thoughtful, thought-provoking questions. My folks were very excited, I guess, even though not outwardly so. They're a little anxious, but you could tell in the video how they were kind of beaming, reminiscing, and it's like talking. They made it. John is very easy to talk to, as you might have known by now, and it was like talking with a friend over the table in their own home. So it was a very comfortable setting, and they went down memory lane, pretty much from the beginning. And I learned some things still. So not all the tales had been told. There was still plenty of meat on the bone that we'd never known, and now we have it for all time.
Well, there are a couple of things I see in this. Is I'm a little bit of a marketing guy, okay, and I take a look at this, and there's so many positives to having somebody else come in with this rather than somebody with a cassette recorder and recording mom and dad. First of all, I look at it sort of like psychologically. If the family, if you're doing it for, how many stories do Nina and I have? And if we had the family do it, it'd be, oh no, don't be talking about that, mom and dad. It might be something that's important to mom and dad. They want to get that. They want to get that the story told, and a neutral arbiter of that who conducts the interview can do that.
And also, it's really important. I think it's the first time they've told the story. So if you think about it, when you tell a story to someone the first time, right, it's a fresh story versus saying the story all over again. You've heard it. And I think that's what makes it so special, because the person telling a story is telling it to that person for the first time.
Well, that's true. And they
versus their siblings or their,
And they can embellish it any way they want.
Exactly right. They can do whatever they want, right? Make the story up. But it was so interesting with Bernie's parents. His father was in Germany during World War II, and he had and he's lived a really full life. Both of them lived a really full life. So I thought that, it was a really wonderful interview. We love the couples interviews. Heather and I, because the way they, especially because most people are married for like 50 years, 45 years, and they really know each other and they play off each other really wonderfully. We've had really wonderful couples interviews, and Bernie's and his parents was one of them.
We happened to conduct that interview on Valentine's Day, so that kind of made it extra special.
That's cool. Well,
right.
So Bernie, did you spring this on them like it was a gift on Christmas or something like this, or did you talk to them ahead of time that you wanted to do this and you got their concurrence? How did that happen?
Well, like most things, it's a process. You kind of tiptoe into it, and the idea, you throw it out. I'm not so sure. So it's 3 or 4 times, and then finally, we're going to do it. It was approaching Christmas time at the time, and the last thing I want is gifts. Says, I don't want any gifts. There's nothing I need. Knickknacks I'm done with, just another dusting thing. So what do you do? Experiences. And this was something that isn't going to take up any more room on their counter. And so I think prior to Christmas, we finally decided, okay, it's going to happen. It's going to be our gift. It's all right, okay. And actually, John was very accommodating because we had to change the schedule a couple times just for health reasons. And but they were very accommodating, and it worked out just beautifully.
Now, a question I have for you. When you're coming up with, how long is the interview all told about? Just a ballpark.
Well, they run between like 40 minutes and an hour, wouldn't you say, Heather? Most of them?
The edited version.
The final edited version.
Right around an hour and a half typically is
the capture time. Yeah. We spend generally around 3 hours total with an interview from start to finish in terms of setting up, doing the interview, and packing up and leaving.
Okay, so there has to be some discussion ahead of time about what type of visual assets you want and what you're going to include if they have a special award or something they want to show. So is that something that you do? Obviously you have to have some type of plan ahead of time.
Yeah.
What's the plan like ahead of time?
Heather, you can talk on that.
Yeah. So some people are prepared to share some memorabilia and photos the day of the interview, but actually a lot of the times what we do is after the interview, we'll request certain pictures or memorabilia based on what they talked about. So after the interview, we kind of know what the content is and what is going to make sense to visually incorporate. So some people have incorporated family videos, various memorabilia or photos.
Like they talk about their wedding or talk about some stories of their first house, when the kids were young, or particular relatives. If they give us pictures, then as they're talking about those particular experiences or people, that comes up on the video.
This is so fascinating to me because if you could have something like this from generations ago, how cool would that be? How cool that would be. My family, quite frankly, we don't even know, we don't know anything at all about our past. Even the name Geneva, the word was that Grandpa came over on the boat. The guy behind the desk says, what's your name? He says, Geneva. He goes, Geneva. He goes, close enough. Okay. He wasn't going to argue. This is the last time a Geneva didn't argue with somebody. Okay. That we don't even know what the name was. And, I'm afraid of taking the DNA test, finding out that, I come from the planet Zepdor or something like that. That's, plus you're giving all that stuff away to somebody, somebody in China who eventually is going to find some way of manipulating your life, So, I'm not really fond of that, but this I'm very, very fond of. This sounds like a great idea. You're passing something down for the future.
Well, the great thing too is, like, I just talked to someone a couple of days ago where they had a bunch of pictures from their mother that they didn't know the people in the pictures because their mother was gone. They didn't know with this kind of thing. When you have the interview and you put pictures of from the past in there, then they'll know who these people were and what their relationship was with their family.
So, Bernie, we're about ready to head into a hard news break, but before we do, give me like a little eyewash. What would be your recommendation to people?
Well, I would say don't wait too long. This is something you should do your parents are getting along in age, or grandparents, or however you want to do it, don't wait till it's too late. I know some people, they regret, I wish I'd always done this, right? And that was the part that John was very encouraging on, gently, to say, now is the time. What are you waiting for? And he was right. And, now we have a finished product that, our family's scattered across the country, and they all have a link that's going to be there forever. And, he provides hard copies like a thumb drive if you want it, for old schoolers like people like me who have cassette decks still. And it's something that we can treasure for the rest of our lives. And some of the life philosophies and memories, like I said, we never heard before. So it's really tremendous.
Well, Bernie, thank you ever so much. Like I said, we're heading into a hard news break, but I appreciate you coming on the phone. And John, we'll be back with you, right after the news break.
Thanks so much, Bernie.
Thank you.
Well, we were having fun during the break. You can tell by my laughing, but we're going to get down to serious stuff now. We're talking to John Myers from Myers Creative, who owns this other company, Life Interviews. You can find at lifeinterviews.com. Go figure. Life Interviews. And we're here with Heather. And Heather Roman, who is his colleague, associate, and I guess you would say you were director, producer.
Producer is my title. Yeah, production coordinator, producer. Yep.
She makes it all happen.
Yeah, she's the one that does the work. I mean,
yes, she does.
I can tell this.
For many years.
We're talking about this program that John has. We'll come in and interview you or your parents or some other loved ones, and for a recording that you can pass down to generations. And like I always like to say, you get a DNA test that tells you where your ancestors were from, but it doesn't tell you very much about them. So he has this program where he'll come into your home and interview you or interview your loved ones. You said the couples like to tell stories about their weddings and what. Did you ever have a thing where you did, like the divorce ones, like you did two of these, like you had that would be very interesting.
It'd be interesting, but I don't know if it would be. I don't think I want to put that down on.
There's a whole nother avenue for you there. You take an interview of one of the spouses and take an interview of the other spouse, and you put them together, and it would be like I don't know what you would call that.
The stories would be different. The stories would be totally different.
That's exactly. Well, let's start with what we are doing now. Okay, so Heather, go over a little bit of what you ask potential interviewees and what to expect, and let's get a little bit into the details of this.
Sure. So some of the things that we ask you to do to prepare are, if you had like diaries or journals, kind of, review those. You might want to jog your memory of the past, review old pictures. And what we want you to bring to mind is maybe different important events, moments, or decisions that you've made in your life that have made a difference. What lessons you've learned, in life that you want to pass on to family and friends. So you really want to prepare. You just kind of want to bring some of these things to mind that, you don't need notes during the interview. You don't need to come with notes, but you might want to just kind of ready yourself by kind of reviewing some of these things. Some of the things we're going to ask you about will be, growing up, your childhood, your love life, your career, kind of hit all the different kind of stages. Want to know who in your life might have been like a mentor to you, things like that.
Lessons you've learned. The thing is, I tell people, it's not like we're going to ask you math questions, okay? It's all in your heart. You haven't got to prepare. I've had one time we did an interview with this guy who was a school teacher, but really prepared. He had made pages of notes. I'm like, you don't need your notes. But he, it made him feel comfortable to kind of rehash that stuff, writing it down. And, we're not having you read anything during the interview, but that's the great thing. It all comes from your heart. It's all stuff There's not going to be anything difficult about these interviews. It's just you just sharing your life, and things that were important to you in your life and what what you think that you want to leave to, your future generations. So that's the great thing about these. People have been nervous before these. They all don't know what to expect. But the minute they start, they just open right up, and you just have a beautiful conversation. That's all we do. We just have a beautiful conversation.
Well, what I find when I'm doing these interviews is just myself is that people a lot of times come in very nervous, and then after we just talk, just like we are across the desk from each other, they get to enjoy it. Wow, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, you were very apprehensive about this, but we can always edit. Sometimes we have to start a recording over again, like we had to do just a couple of minutes ago, and people kind of drop their fear because it's really pleasant, and then you get a product that it's unique and nobody else has.
Well, it's authentic and it feels authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, like I said, we haven't had anybody that froze up during an interview or, had to stop halfway through. Everyone's really enjoyed it because people love talking about themselves. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's like, so I think that's really works in the benefit of the videos for their families.
Well, the other thing, I say this all the time on the show. My favorite quote of all time is Jackie Robinson says, "Life has little effect except on the effect. It has little meaning, rather, other than the effect it has on other lives." So you tell a story, you give a piece of advice, you pass it down from generation to generation. You don't know how that's going to affect somebody. They're going to say, well, I learned something. I either fell into a pothole that I really wish I didn't fall into, or I took advantage of this, and this is the way you should live your life. I mean, it's like Jack Palvino. Jack Palvino says...
It was a great interview you did with Jack Palvino. I heard it.
Jack Palvino, I forgot. I mean, it's like interviewing Walter Cronkite or something like that. All you have to do is say, hey, John, what do you want to talk about? And then he goes through the whole thing. And the thing he says, if you enjoy your life... He says, you never work a day in your life. He said, if you enjoy your work, rather, you never work a day in your life. And that was his advice to people. Do what you love. That's one of the benefits of doing what you're doing. You're doing it for them, but you're also doing this for the future generations that we're not going to be around for. I mean, think about that. For sure.
I mean, it's more for the people, that you're going to share it with, that's who it's for.
Yeah. And for people to say things to their kids that they wouldn't say.
You get it on tape. You get it for all posterity.
Yeah. Martha, you always wanted to tell the kids how pissed off you were when such and such. Here's your choice.
Usually not that, but it's always.
But you wouldn't stop some if they wanted to do that.
No, I know. Hey, listen, it's their interview, so it's up to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is editing. So, what we capture, then we can collaborate with them and what the final product is.
Yeah. Now you have to be having fun doing this too, right? I mean, because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah. I really, a lot of these people are strangers, but every interview you do, you just walk away. It's just, you learn something interesting about that person or some kind of funny story.
And you also do interviews. Yeah. She's done interviews before too, and also Dan at our office does interviews too. So all three of us have done interviews.
The question I have though is that your studios are really, really cool. I mean, what a great! Oh man, that is like like somebody's visual toy box or something like that. If somebody wanted to do an interview in your studio, they could probably come in and do it there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our format, how we've kind of set it up, is to come to people's home, and we're usually doing it, on a comfortable couch in their own environment. But absolutely, if somebody wanted to do it at the studio, of course, we could absolutely do that.
I'm just thinking about that as just an environment with all the visuals in the background and stuff like that. If you had it in the studio with the studio accoutrements and stuff, that would be kind of cool too.
Sure.
They don't necessarily have to come. You don't necessarily have to come to your house. I mean, it'd be nice. You don't necessarily have to do that.
It's your interview, so however you want to do it, we'll come to you. That's the key to the thing is we'll come to you or you come to us.
One of the things I like a lot of things about you, but the other day you were taking pictures of me for my book, which is going to be published soon. Don't be taken for a ride, how to buy a car without getting snookered. But you're taking the pictures of me, and you kept on having that philosophy or telling me that. Well, it's your picture. What do you want? It's your picture. What do you want? It's your picture. What do you want? Which is good. I mean, that gets back to my my platinum rule. What does the customer want? So that's really kind of cool. And I know that the radio station wants us to take a break so they can go sell something or other than life interviews. So we're going to be talking to John right after this. Well, welcome back. We're talking to John Myers with lifeinterviews.com. Well, it's more than .com. It's Life Interviews, where they come in and they will interview you, your spouse, or you individually, or you with whoever you want. And you can record your life story and pass it down to future generations.
Correct.
And I think it's a wonderful asset. And Nita and I are going to be partaking in this journey ourselves.
We're excited about this interview. It might last about 4 or 5 hours, Heather. I don't know.
Well,
they're going to break a record. They're going to fill all the cards we
fill
own.
my cards.
Well,
memory cards.
Well, there's one thing I really enjoy, and that is hearing myself talk.
Exactly.
Which is why I have a show on the radio that I have to pay the radio station for, and then go find people to be sponsors and all this other stuff. But and we do have a story. I mean, Nita and I'd like to tell the story that we moved up here. We're originally from New York. We moved up here from North Carolina. It was very inexpensive to move up here because it was a backload. Nobody comes this direction. I think we're the only people that came this direction, and to have that story documented for the future. I mean, we just had a birthday for our 2-year-old grandson, and Nina and I are getting up there, and you're hoping that you're going to be there to give him advice and be there for his wedding and his college graduation, but you're looking like maybe that may not happen.
You never know.
Well, you never know. Well, I have this philosophy. You don't know how old you are. You know why you don't know how old you are?
I don't know.
You don't know how because if you die today, you're 100% old.
Yeah, that's right. Right. You're done. You're done.
You're 100% old. So my personal philosophy of life is I am pretending that I am going to live forever. I'm pretending I'm going to live forever, and I'm only going to be wrong one day.
Exactly right.
It could be today. It could be today, or we're like Jimmy Carter. It could be another 30 years from now. But in the meantime, I'm not. I really don't care. So to Bernie's point, do this while you can. I mean, which you could do it. Yeah, do it while you can. Do it before it's we should have bought this for mom and dad or whatever. And it sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, do you have any stories that you can share? Somebody said such and such or something really weird or
not really weird, but maybe the story about the one woman's diary that. Remember the diary?
Yeah. Well, it was actually my mother-in-law. She said that she reviewed her diary, and right after she had met my father-in-law, she had written in really big letters on the page in her diary, "He's a dream." So it was just sweet. And then actually Bernie, who we had on earlier, his mom told a story about the first meals that she cooked right after they were married, and like a terribly burnt meatloaf, and
because the oven was way too hot.
Because they moved out of town, and Wegmans used to remove the gizzards, but she didn't know that there was gizzards in a chicken, and
a common mistake.
I know he was in the military at the time, so he said they had a lot better food on the ship than they had at home. But she's improved greatly over the last 50 years.
Well, it brings a story to mind is that in our family Bible, there's a little note from my dad to my prospective mom back then that were dating, and he's well, when we build our little love nest and whatever, and it was really the sweet thing, and my brother-in-law who has since passed away was like, what? That was your father? What? That doesn't sound like him. How would he? No, it's right here. I mean, at one point in time, they were in love.
And young in
love. It kind of reminds me of that line from Field of Dreams when Kincaid says, I only saw my dad when he was beaten down and old, and I wish I saw him
when he was young.
Yeah,
it's funny because you can't visualize, especially if the grandkids, visualize their grandparents when they first got married, when they were in their 20s and 30s, and to see their pictures in the, because we use their pictures in the videos, it just works out great to see when they were 20 or 30 years old, for the grandkids to see when their grandpa and grandma were young.
Yeah, and what do you do now? You go to the DNA thing, you get a piece of paper. Oh, grandma came from Czechoslovakia. Okay, all right, okay, that's fine. Okay, but that's not much.
Nope. And the thing about pictures nowadays is, there's, because we've been digital for over 20 years now, that, with digital photography, to have these pictures on the video is very important. Preserved, because most people lose all their pictures. They're on their iPhone and they're gone. And now they're going to be preserved on
the color really fades too. I found a lot of, because I've been scanning a lot of the pictures that people provide us for these interviews. And we could kind of bring the color back to life in Photoshop, but when they give me the pictures, they're all really faded.
Yeah, because of time. So you get to preserve those images too, that now that you don't have it stuck in some book in some closet somewhere, you'll have it on the video.
Well, the other thing that I read years ago, and this is absolutely true, is that when you go to your iPhone, you have 25,000 pictures, because nobody's deleting anything anymore, because storage is so accessible. It's not like it was years and years ago where you had to worry about how many megabytes you had in storage. It's like unlimited storage. So you have 25,000 or 30,000 pictures. Which are the important pictures?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So if you're doing your deal, okay, well then whether it's an actual photograph on a piece of paper or it's a digital photograph, you're sorting that down to the most important
most important picture. You're exactly right. I mean, that's the thing, the editing process. People don't do any kind of edit whatsoever with their personal images. They just leave them on their phone. So we get to get those images, and they're preserved now on the video.
So, can you retouch my picture online so I look like I'm younger and have more hair?
Whatever you want. It just costs
there
money.
You go again.
It just costs money.
Yeah,
it just costs money.
Yeah, there you go again.
Yeah,
there you go again.
It's your video.
There you go again, Jimmy.
It's your video.
Yeah. My Lord. This is a lot of fun. So what is the first thing now? I mean, let's talk about what's the first thing that we have to do. Nita and I have to do. We tell you that we want to do this. So what's the next step?
Yeah. So the next step is really kind of for you guys to do some preparing on your own. Like I mentioned before, just if you have diaries, review them, review some pictures, just kind of gather your thoughts about some of the important life lessons that you're going to want to share.
Also, if you want to talk to your kids about it, and maybe say, is there any questions you want them to ask of us, or if there's any things in your life that we might not know about, that some experience you want to make sure you cover in the video, let us know.
Yeah,
we can incorporate.
You mentioned your move up north.
We can incorporate that in the questions.
Yeah, I think it might be worthwhile to you ask those questions of Nita, and then you ask those questions of me, and see where we, rather than us trying to agree on it ourselves. I see you smiling. You understand. Well, you've met the two of us, I guess. But but I think that might be the best thing. What's important to you and what's important to him, and then find out in between, how we're going to boil that down. It sounds like a lot of fun. Sure. It really does sound like a lot of fun.
And it's all from your heart, so it's not hard. Once we get going on the interview, we ask the questions, and and a lot of times they're organic. I'll just kind of go with the flow. We'll just, whoever's doing the interview, will go with the flow of the.
And we know that Dom is just going to go.
We're just going to say one question.
We already know that.
Go.
Yeah, you're going to have to drag it out of me.
No,
right?
He's
so shy. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do over the next weeks, months, whatever, is that we'll give everybody a little progress of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I'm going to recommend that people go and go lifeinterviews.com. Interviews, lifeinterviews.com. And I'll put a spot on my webpage too, so people can go to nononsenseroundtable.com and get in contact with you. And we will start this journey together. Sounds like a lot of fun.
That sounds perfect.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We'll be talking more. And next week, 10 o'clock, it's the No Nonsense Roundtable.
This is Dom Genova from my friend Jack Greco at Jack Greco Furniture. I'd invite you to go see Jack Greco if you're looking to buy furniture right now. But beyond that, I'd invite you to go see Jack Greco if you're ever going to buy new furniture. And why? You can look and dream and plan how exactly you'd like your furniture. The type of wood, construction is half the fun. It's going to be reflective of your taste, and quite frankly, you'll want to pass it down as an heirloom. Can't say that about the big box stores. Go see Jack. Okay, everybody. When we do a radio broadcast, it is maybe 40 minutes long out of the hour because there's a news break and whatever. And then we get to a point where we start talking and we say, well, maybe there's more things to talk about than we can fit into a radio broadcast. And so we make something that can be added on to the radio broadcast, and it becomes a YouTube. And John, Heather, and I were just talking after we wrapped up the show, and it went beyond the production of a video for your legacy, but more than the why. The why of what this is. And we started talking about people and people's stories and whatever. And I was telling the story about somebody who affected me when I was a young man. And it was a father of a gal I went out with, and he gave me some advice, and it was advice I didn't really understand until years and years later. And a little bit of a little bit of advice or a little bit of a direction that you can give somebody very early on will have an incredible effect later on. I say it's sort of like a ship that bears that it has a change in bearing in New York of a very, very small degree will have an incredible effect when the ship gets across the ocean to Europe. And John, Heather, and I were just discussing that. That's these interviews that you do with people and their families. I mean, that's that is the that's a benefit and something that you hope will affect future generations. So this isn't just the what of what you're doing; it's the kind of the why or what you're doing, John.
You're exactly right. I mean, all of us have had people in our lives that have given us little bits of knowledge that kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And then you remember that and you just put that. I mean, I've been self-employed my whole life for 37 years. And I've had people through my lives that have helped me I remember when my favorite professor at RIT was a really hard professor. And he had told me, he'd bring you in your senior year and see what you're made of, what you could do in the future. And he said, I don't see you going to a big market like New York, but I think you could be successful in, Rochester. And at first I was kind of, it bothered me that I couldn't make it in New York, whatever. So then, but I decided to stay in Rochester and build my business here. And probably 15, 20 years later, I got a representative in New York now. So I worked in New York, but he had told me he had always been a great mentor and had confidence in me. And these RIT professors, once a month, their retired professors would meet for lunch at near the RIT, and they had asked me to be their guest one time, and it was like a bunch of proud fathers, have me all these old retired professors. And they want to know about my career and what I did, and it was a different kind of trajectory because I stayed here locally. I didn't go to the bigger markets, but they were so happy that to see what their hard work had, they're teaching me and how I turned out as a professional.
Well, my older daughter, Francesca, once said something to me. She goes, "Dad, in every experiment, there's heat loss. We're talking about something not being, it's not being reproduced the same way, or a little bit of a defect, no matter what. And when you're talking about your story, okay, so somebody a generation or two generations from now is going to say, hey, my great granddad, Dom Genova, he used to say such a, no, that's probably going to be lost. That advice that I have, whatever direction I want to give to future generations. Our grandson just turned 2, Like I said, I'm probably not going to be there to see his children born. I hope so, but maybe not. And passing something down that you want passed down, that you'll be sure that it gets passed down in a video, is really kind of a nice. It's a nice way to do it.
It's the only way to do it, unless you write it down in a book. But who's going to open the pages and read a book? It's going to be something you can watch and hear in their own words.
Well, the other thing, I think you'll agree with this, Heather, is that you hear people in their own voices. Definitely. I mean, I guess it's the connotation or the volume and the tenor of your voice when you're saying something, as opposed to as being repeated for you.
And the way they tell a story.
Oh yeah,
everybody tells a story different ways.
Oh, yeah.
It's so interesting to hear that story that way.
Yeah, and once somebody is gone, to be able to hear their voice again is like really special to the loved ones.
Oh yeah.
And like Dad, like John spoke about his
Whoa.
father. Like John spoke about his father, hearing his laugh on his interview.
I'm not that old, Heather. I'm not that old.
Now you've been colleagues for how many years?
Almost 25 years.
Okay,
now.
well, we with that, I would feel the same way about him too. Yeah. So. Did you ever have anybody who was a real character? I mean, somebody who you saw. I mean, I intend on being a character. When you're doing mine, I'm going to be a character.
That's I am perfect going to. Your daughters will love that, because you are a character. But I don't know, like Mark's story. I mean, he was a big game hunter.
Oh yeah,
we had a big game hunter.
A big game hunter.
Yeah, so his story was unbelievable. His house is full of like all these animals from all over the world.
Well, that's not going to age well.
Well,
I'm sorry. Like generations from now, that's not going to age well. I mean,
the video. I don't know.
Okay.
It's interesting to hear his perspective.
A totally different perspective on it that we'd never heard. But he had some amazing stories about different hunts he's been on, and how
when they kill the animals, it's like feeding a village, and they're using every bone and every piece of skin, and they're using the resources. It's not necessarily. So
he's a wonderful man. He's definitely interesting. I don't try to think other.
Well, big game. No, big game means to me like elephant. I mean, you're talking about big. Really?
Anything you can think of. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There we go. We don't want to talk to them. So anyway, well, I have this expression: if God didn't want you to eat animals, why did He make them out of meat?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. I mean, it's so funny just to hear his perspective on the whole thing, a whole different conversation. But I'm trying to think of anything else a lot of these people are, they have lived a full life. And again, I think the stories we get from these people aren't like, they wouldn't be exciting for someone else to listen. Some of them they have really good stories, but the majority of it is really wonderful for the people that love them to hear the stories.
Yeah, I mean, Carl, one of our early ones, he had an interesting story because he was adopted and he met his biological family later in life.
Yeah, and he talked about he had some problems with addiction and things like that. So he talked about that and things, how he came out the other side.
One of the visuals on his interview is like his arrest warrant.
Yeah, you're
really?
Right.
Like,
because he wanted to give advice to his kids and his grandkids that he had some rough times, but he survived, and now he's on the other side and doing really well. He had his good life.
I just love this concept, and the other thing I like about the concept is it's you guys. I mean, you if you put a cassette reporter in front of a couple of people, you're not going to get the direction that you give them. A lot of times they're going to be hesitant to say something in front of somebody they know, or their children, or whatever. I can absolutely see that. I can absolutely see, not that we would say anything all that embarrassing, but it's sort of like, well, Nina, we've heard that story 27 times before, and what are you telling it? And that's not the way you told it the last time, and like, I don't care. I'm making up the story.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it, right?
I'm going to tell this story whatever I want.
Keep changing it little by little.
That's right. And I don't know. It's just the ability to be confident at this point of our lives. There's going to be something of you, and maybe this is sounding really sentimental. Something of you is going to live on. it's sort of like something is going to live on, whether it's, more than likely it will be seen, because I can't imagine future generations not showing this to their family. But something is going to live on. I mean, mom and dad's boxes of photos and memorabilia. My dad was very well respected, and we have all these plaques and whatever. As a matter of fact, we have a picture, and I'll show you later, of him meeting the Pope. I mean, it's just this beautiful, beautiful stuff, and it's all in a box someplace.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going through this box.
Exactly right. It's it's just like these things come to life when you interview someone versus like all these objects that can't talk. They can't tell the story.
I still think the idea of doing this for divorced people is really kind of cool.
Well, listen,
you could have a whole cottage business with this.
You bring them to me, I'll do it. Okay.
Martha and John, and they each trash each other, independently.
For 45-minute videos.
45-minute videos. Yeah, I think there's really a.
I don't know if the kids
I think there's really.
I don't think kids want to watch that over and over again.
No. They would do it. They would just do it to stick it to the other one.
I understand. Listen, if they pay me, we'll do it for them.
John, were you going to share a story about somebody that hired you at Kodak? I thought you started to share.
I was, but yeah, I mean, I just saying that how important this guy was in my life, because he had such confidence in me. He would hire me. He would, when I worked for the photo studios at Kodak, the commercial studios at Kodak, they would come and I would just show up at the office every day, and he'd give me work. So for like 2 or 3 years, I got work from this for working at Kodak as a photographer. But just to go forward, like 20 years after he had been retired and gone, he had found some pictures I had taken of him, and he sent them to me. He lived in North Carolina, so I called him up, and I wanted to thank him for, what he did for me, because I had a successful business. I just started my career, and the phone was quiet for like literally like 30 seconds. Nothing's on the phone. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so he was crying because he was so touched. He was so choked up about me calling up and thanking him for that. So, I think that really meant a lot to me, be able to thank him.
Yeah.
And that's like these life interviews that people get choked up. I mean, we had one woman interviewed that did her parents' interview, and she kept crying during me interviewing her about about their parents' interview. She kept getting all choked up. I'm like, well, jeez.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it's an emotional thing.
Yeah, it's an emotional thing. The other thing about this is that, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't think there's many 26-year-old couples that are having this done. You're at a point in your life where you got a little bit of discretionary income. Yeah, you could go take a vacation to Orlando this year or whatever, and for a little bit more than the price of the airline tickets, for God's sakes, you could have you come in and do this, and and depending on what type of package, is probably cheaper. Probably your deal is cheaper than Disney. To be honest,
it's cheaper than Disney.
My God, the stuff the money they're getting for that stuff these days. And that's the thing about seriously, when you think about things that you have and assets that you have, you can go and have a vacation. You go have a vacation, and the vacation is come and it's gone. You got some pictures and whatever. I mean, this is a thing. This is a thing that you have.
Yes.
So, and probably as you go on, it may not be a bad idea to update it over time too. The life goes on. Your experiences change. Like I said, now we have a 2-year-old, and we have a house out in South Bend next to the house that my daughter lives in, and we go visit there and whatever. But that's a whole nother aspect of our lives. We became Notre Dame fans, which we weren't, before.
Big game coming up.
Yeah, before she worked for Notre Dame. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to people. Do you have a summer home? Well, where is it? Indiana.
It's South Bend.
Like what? Huh?
That's right.
Could you please explain that to me? Why do we have a summer home in Indiana? Well, that's a long story, and and then there's stories that you can tell. You can tell maybe very esoteric stories, or maybe you can go on this video and tell stories about children who think that they're more intelligent than they're.
You better edit that one out. You got to edit that one out. We're in trouble. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Well, and the other thing too is that this is amazing how life works. I didn't know that Alexandra, and we weren't talking about Alexandra there necessarily. I think that both of them think that, but work for you. As you would call it an intern.
An intern
for
a summer.
But,
and I actually hired her when we had a job down in New York City. So after the summer, I actually hired her for a big project down in New York. One of my toughest projects I've ever worked on. It was just a crazy shoot down in New York City.
Well, and she's, I mean, as we know, she's doing really well. But, that effect that you had on her, obviously led to her work ethic and what she does and whatever. She has a really lot of respect for you.
Well, I was a small piece of the puzzle.
And when you let me know how that can be done,
it's Heather. Heather, she really worked for Heather.
Yeah, if you tell me how that can be done, I'll see if I can duplicate it for myself. Dad. Yeah, well, yeah, that's it.
I have daughters too. I understand.
Oh yeah, that's it. Well, you know what? The thing about it, quite frankly. I guess it was Mark Twain says, when I was, 16 years old, my parents were the stupidest people on the face of the earth. And by the time I got to be, like 21, it's amazing what they learned in 5 years, so.
That's great.
but that's it, so now what I get, going off topic a little bit, is all the technology stuff that I'm not aware of. Right. I mean, the thing and, how do you do this and that, the other thing. And you're so, and I tell them, my parents had a VCR that flashed 12 all the time because they didn't know how to change the time. Right. Okay. And I was like, they're so stupid. They don't know how to change the thing. Okay. I did that to them. You're doing this to me. Your children are going to do it to you.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly.
There's going to be some,
exactly right.
You don't know how to program the interplanetary, transporter for the blah. Oh, mom and dad, you're so stupid. And it's just going to happen. It's just going to happen.
It sure will.
So document with a video now. Where you stand and whatever. So, so your future generations, no matter what. Your children are going to tell their children about you. You have your story that you can tell your grandchildren and great-grandchildren so they'll know that their parents were full of crap.
Your truth. You're going to tell your truth.
Yeah, you're going to tell your truth. I don't care what your mom and dad told you. Here's a video from the year 2025. It'll be 2057 or something like that. I don't care what you've been told all this time. This is the way we really, talked and looked like and said. So, so.
Excellent.
There you go.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every Saturday from 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.